Oh, Rarin, do we have a video for you today? How are you feeling after the last one, buddy? Feeling good? Feeling good? Feeling confident?
Hold on. What happened last one? I remember I read a card completely wrong.
You read a card completely wrong? Never.
I think I repressed everything else, to be honest. I don't remember
Excellent.
anything. So yeah, I'm good to go.
Excellent. Well, tell me this. Do you know what an Xyz monster is?
Is that a disease?
I said an Xyz monster, not a disease monster.
No, I do not.
Excellent. Perfect. This is going to go well then. So an Xyz monster is a card that is actually a black bordered card. So you know how synchro monsters are white bordered, Xyz monsters are black bordered. And so these are cards that reside in the extra deck. And how you summon them is that, similar to most of these summoning mechanics, you take 2 cards to bring it out to the field, 2 or more. And in the instance of Xyz monsters, I'm going to go ahead and show you one just so you can get your bearings before we get into this video. Okay. So here's the classic. Go ahead and give this a read.
This is real? This isn't a custom card? Why does it look so weird? Number 39 Utopia is the 4 stars, but on the opposite side now.
That is a rank. It is not a level.
A rank?
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. Read the rest.
Okay. When any player monster declares an attack, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card, negate the attack. When this card is targeted from an attack, while it has no XYZ materials, destroy this card.
And you missed the part just slightly above it where it says 2 level 4 monsters. So how an Xyz summon works is that if you have 2 level 4 monsters on the field in the instance of Utopia, you actually take them and overlay them on top of one another, and then you would summon the Utopia on top of that as the 3rd card. So the 2 other monsters are actually like mechanically tied to the Utopia, and in the instance of any Xyz monster, you can then do stuff with those materials, and essentially when you run out of materials is when you can no longer use the effects of that given card. So today, we're going to be showing you some of these Xyz monsters, and you're going to be trying to evaluate them to the best of your ability, considering this is like the first time you're seeing any of these cards. What do you think?
Okay, so hold on. Just want to understand the mechanic correct. Is this like, do you know what crew and magic is? Do you know what that is?
Not really.
Okay, no. Never mind. I was gonna say that. I'm sure I'll get.
How does it work? How does that work?
You have to crew minion stats or a power based on what the crew asks for, and then like that sits on top, and then you also have those 2 minions under the crew.
That sounds similar. I'm not sure mechanically if it's like exactly the same, but yes, you do need multiple things to be able to bring out thing, essentially.
But you'll be showing me the resources to make this card as well, or are you just showing me the card?
No, for the purposes of the video, I want you to assume that whatever deck you would be playing this in, there is a feasible way to access it, either as like that's the main thing the deck is trying to do, or similar to like with synchro summoning or any other extra deck mechanic, it's like a utility sort of toolbox type effect, if you will. Make sense?
Okay, sure.
And if there's any other clarification on that, I'll specify. There might be 1 or 2 that are outliers, but we'll get to those when we get to them. So let's show you your first one here.
Another random ass question here. Hold on. When did these cards come out?
These all came out throughout the middle of Yu-Gi-Oh's lifespan. So these came out after synchro summoning. This was the next big extra deck based mechanic. So I want to say they came out in 2012. That's when this started.
2012. Okay. And just so I'm aware, to get like a level 4 one of these, you have to have the requirement that is above like the actual like card text, like the 2
Correct.
level 3 monsters.
Yes. Okay. Typically, for the most part, you're going to see this for a lot of these. If it is a rank 4 monster, you typically need 2 level 4. So whatever the number is, you usually use the corresponding level. So Utopia, it's a rank 4. You typically need 2 level 4s, etc.
Okay. Wind up Zenmaines. That sounds correct.
Correct. Yeah, you got it right.
2 level 3 monsters. If this face up card on the field would be destroyed, you can detach 1 material from this card instead. Once per turn during the end phase, if this effect was used this turn, target 1 card on the field and destroy it. If this face up card on the field would be destroyed. So you can only I'm assuming just for like mechanics, you can only detach this if that requirement is met. So you can only detach something from this if this would be destroyed.
Correct. So if it were to be face down, for instance, if something were to attempt to destroy Zenmaines, you wouldn't be able to detach and it would get destroyed. But if it's flipped face down, it does still retain its materials.
Once per turn during the end phase, if this effect was used this turn, target 1 card on the field and destroy it. And this is made Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're talking like 2011, 2012. Okay. All right. This one's not bannable. I can tell you that right now. There's no way.
Really? Okay, why do you say that?
I mean, it's such a specific thing. Like the thing is like this is very specific, right? What does this card do if it doesn't get destroyed? It's just like kind of a shitty stat, no? Unless like do the monsters that it's using to summon this or like put it on whatever, you can't use those effects either, right? Like once this is on top, this is the only thing that matters.
Correct. Yeah. So those monsters underneath, their only purpose is to fuel the effect of whatever they're underneath, essentially.
Okay. So they're just fodder. Okay. I understand.
Yes. Now, I will say there are some cards that might say if this card is attached to an Xyz monster as material, it might give the Xyz monster some sort of ability. Like it might say like, oh, the Xyz monster can't be destroyed by battle or something like that. But those are fewer and further between.
Okay, so I don't know. Like this is a pretty shitty stat. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I have no idea how hard it is to actually like. Okay, I have to ask this because like I need to understand fully how this works. Do you have to summon? Like are the monsters for this? Are they really easy to summon? Like I don't have to sacrifice another card to play them. Like I could just play both of these in the same turn. I would play up the Zenmaines.
Yeah, so you could hypothetically special summon a level 3 monster, normal summon another level 3 monster, then overlay them to put the Zenmaines out if you wanted to.
It's very easy to summon these is just what I'm trying to understand. Like I have
Correct.
the hoops to get through this is not like insanely worrisome, and it's very consistent, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would say it depends on, I would say general rule of thumb, the higher the rank the monster is, the harder it is to summon, just because it's easier to get, let's say, 2 level 3s out onto the field than maybe 2 level 7s or 8s.
Okay, so they go giga high here. Okay, hold on. All right, so 3's like nothing. Like this is just
because I mean that's just like you can normal summon level 3s, right? I mean that's like no big deal.
Yeah. That's why I'm curious because like you're talking like you need the materials for this, so how likely is it that you actually get to summon a level 3 and then you're talking like level 8, which I'm assuming you're maybe show me one at some point, but in the comparison from level 8 to level 3, I would imagine level 3 is much easier to actually play.
Yeah, and I like I said, everything I'm going to show you for the most part, it's not impossible to summon these cards. Like there are ways to do so. So that's general rule. Like if you're playing this card, you plan to use it.
There's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I guess would destroy this card. Now, the question is, are people smart enough to like ignore this, or can you even ignore it so that this card literally does nothing? Because what I've learned from these videos, 1500 attack isn't great. And you're also have to like play 2 monsters before this, so that it even feels worse. The defense stat, I guess, is fine. So you would maybe put this in like defense mode. How likely, like if you're putting this in defense mode, like what do I care? I guess if like I can't use minion, I actually, okay, so the more I think about this, then minion comment doesn't work, because if it was gonna die, you just deattach something and then it's fine. And then if it's gonna die to a spell or a trap card or something, you can just deattach it. So maybe it's more annoying than I think it is. It's kind of just, yeah, it's kind of just really annoying, no?
Okay.
You can't like,
we're listening. We're listening.
It's been a while since I've done one of these videos, and I have to remind myself, like, it's not like Hearthstone where you can just hit face and ignore what the hell your opponent's doing. Like you have to actually like, go through.
Everything has taunt.
I guess it is very annoying. Worst case scenario for this card, as long as it's like you've been saying like it's very easy to get these on board. So like the worst case for this is that it just delays your opponent 2 turns. And then they still have to go through this, I guess. Here's another random question. If I deattach a monster, can I reattach it with a different monster? Like, can I go back up to 2, or is it once it's like gone, it only has the 1 material?
There are cards that can reattach materials to Xyz monsters, but I will say those are quite rare.
Okay, so I shouldn't consider that at all if I'm evaluating this card.
Correct.
Okay. So there's just so many questions here because like all this may matter. And
I'm really shocked the fact that you're a Diamond Master Duel and you don't know
that was so long
That's
ago
incredible. That's incredible to me. That's incredible.
Okay, I think this card is playable in hindsight. Okay. Now I'm talking myself into it, because if this minion had taunt in Hearthstone and I have to get through it 3 times, I'd be kind of annoyed. As long as it's not like as long as it's not insanely difficult to play this, I feel like this is good enough that you might actually see it play. On top of it, let's say they play an AoE that would destroy this. I deattach a material from this. This is the only card that would survive. Just like, let's pretend the rest of the board is just a bunch of shitters. This is the only one that would survive.
Correct. Yes.
I don't know. This is a good litmus test. So I'm gonna say
torn. You're torn. That's why I picked this one first. I thought this would be a good one to start with.
This is also just like, without knowing anything about these cards, like I feel like this is a good like litmus test, because it's just, this card may be playable, it's also maybe good, but it also just might be absolute dog shit compared to what you showed me. So like it's in the middle. I don't think this card's bannable. Like, there's no way. Like, there's way worse effects than this. So, like, I don't think that's bannable. Maybe Konami was like, oh, this card's so annoying. We don't want our opponents to play this card because nothing really happens in this game if you just keep detaching monsters from this. But I seriously doubt that's the worst thing that they're worried about. So I'm going to say not bannable. I would say it's probably played. Not great. But again, this is going to tell me a lot more about these cards as soon as you give me the answer to this.
How confident are you in that answer, Raren?
I'm pretty confident. I think the logic is there. But also, this is fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! And next thing you're going to tell me, well, did you know that there's another card called Wind Up Zenmaines? And that card is broken with this? Sorry.
So final answer. Think good, playable, not bannable.
Yes.
What if I told you that during this time that Zenmaines was released, this was like the best thing that you could be doing?
Bro, the best thing I could be doing is just detaching materials. You guys need help. Like, again, this is just another way of like, how did this game survive if this is the best thing you guys are doing? Are you lying to me, though? That's the other question.
I'm not, actually. So when Zenmaines was released, the turn 1 open of Zenmaines was actually just the most standard play if your deck was able to produce it that every deck was doing because you felt so safe behind it. You have this giant, I wouldn't say giant, this like mid-sized creature because in defense mode, 2100 actually is kind of an annoying stat to get over. There are not many ways to deal with very efficiently unless you were playing cards that are non-destructive removal. And for the most part, I want to say that unless you were going out of your way to play those types of cards, which you could, it wasn't incredibly common though. So a lot of the times, most decks just putting up a turn 1 Zenmaines, you were okay with that. Like, you would just give you more time to draw like more cards to really like just put your game plan into motion. During this time, Yu-Gi-Oh! There were formats that it was really out of control, but at the same time, there was a lot of slower Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. And this in like slower Yu-Gi-Oh! is a very good card. You're right though. You're correct. Not banned. Just a very, very solid card. This card was actually quite expensive for how good it was.
Okay, so you're saying this card was good because it was annoying to get through, but it was also the best thing you could be doing at the time. Like the most consistent best thing you could be doing.
I would say unless your deck unless in a particular format there was some super degenerate thing you could be doing, most decks putting up turn 1 Zenmaines was very common during this period. That was like the turn 1 play to do, and there weren't really many better plays than that.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down just for going forward because that is very relevant. If this is the thing when we're doing turn 1. I'm very curious to see what the rest of these are.
Yeah, and like even in like simplified game states, right? Let's say you're both down to a couple cards and you have the ability to summon Zenmaines. Your opponent's gonna have a really hard time answering it because now you have this thing that's really hard to kill, and if you try to kill it, it's gonna take out your own stuff, you know, on the crackback, right? Yeah. So just a very solid card all around, and a very good introduction to the Xyz era. All right. Okay. We talked about some higher rank Xyz monsters. Let's just think about this guy.
Are they all numbered? No, they're not. Okay. Number 11.
They're not all numbered.
Big Eye. That's a 7. So 2 level 7 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card to target 1 monster your opponent controls. Take control of that monster. This card cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. And it says this card, so like the Big Eye can't, but the monster that you take can.
Correct.
How much harder is it to get to level 7 monsters here?
So it is situational. It really just depends on what decks are playable at any given moment and what levels of monsters are in those decks, right? So there were, I would say, like maybe when Big Eye was first released, there weren't many ways to really summon it very easily, but then over time as the game aged, it became a lot easier to special summon level 7 monsters. So then this card, you know, might become more playable as a result of that. So it really is contextual to, you know, what people are playing at any given time. So it's not impossible, but, you know, typically higher level monsters can be a little bit more difficult to special summon. It really just depends.
The attack stat here is, like, I think at this point, somewhat relevant, but I don't think that's the case here. You're definitely looking at the monster taking control of them. Like, that's probably really, really good. And you can do it twice, but you can only do it once per turn. Is that really good enough? So in the can you counter this effect, by the way? Like, is this something that goes on the stack and you can deal with or no?
Yep, you can.
Okay, so you can at least try to protect your monsters if that's the case.
But think about it, Raren. You can take your opponent's Zenmaines. It's crazy.
So if you take one of their XYZ monsters, you get the whole stack, right?
You do.
And then you don't have to give it back.
Yep, it doesn't say it's until end of turn or anything. It's permanent.
This card kind of counters the Zenmaines then, because like you're not destroying it, you just take it. But it's level 7 monsters. That feels like it would be very like inconsistent compared to the previous one. So if this is consistent enough, this is a very good effect. You've shown me like taking my opponent's monsters before. I think they've all been good. So if you could do it twice, The thing is like, I really don't know how difficult it is to play this consistently. Because that's a lot. Like 2 level 7 monsters feels like it would take a really long time.
Like I said, let's assume for the purpose of this video that it is not difficult in most instances to play these cards.
Okay, so let me continue that thought though. Would you say it's as difficult to play 2 level 3 monsters as it is to play 2 level 7 monsters?
It's really archetype specific, right? Because like, so for instance, like, you know how in Yu-Gi-Oh all the different cards are kind of locked by different archetypes. So maybe there's a level 3 based archetype that's really makes it really easy to summon Zenmaines. Maybe there's a level 7 archetype that makes it really easy to summon Big Eye. These are some of the trade-offs that when you're deck building and you're looking at like payoff cards for that deck, it's like, okay, if I play this deck, I get to play Zenmaines, but if I play this deck, I get to play Big Eye.
I wonder how much of this whole video topic is not how good the card really is, but how worth it is to put it into like a level 7 deck. Like because if we're basing this whole card off an archetype, that feels like it's very interesting. Because like maybe there's just a better level 7 monster that you would rather play, or like a bigger payoff for a level 7 monster. So like, is this a good enough effect that you're going to play for it? And also, is there an archetype for it? In Hearthstone, taking 2, like Hearthstone currently has a card that is 9 mana, take one of your opponent's like minions, and that card is played. The difference is like there's not really a payoff for that card, or like an archetype for it. It's just like, hey, do you have enough mana to play it? Like there's no like mind games here. So it's a lot easier to like play that than it is to, oh, I need 2 level 7 monsters. Also, my opponent needs a monster, which may not be the case depending on what the game's going like. I don't know. I feel like this one's worse. The potential for the effect is very, very good. It also depends on, is this card good enough to counter like whatever the metagame is? This might just be like metagame specific, because maybe taking 1 monster isn't worth it if they're just playing a bunch of shitters. Remind me as well, you can only do this on your turn, right? You can only steal the minion or the monster on your turn.
This is not a quick effect, correct?
I don't know. I want to say it's good, but I don't think it's very good. I think it's, this is again another really good litmus test here, because I feel like this might just be too slow for the effect you're playing for. But obviously, okay, if the effect is like, maybe in Disneyland it's good, so I'll say it's not great. I don't think it's banned either.
Final answer?
Final answer.
All right, so Big Eye's cracked, actually. Big Eye sees modern Yu-Gi-Oh play. That's how good it is. Okay. Like I said, it does depend on the decks and things that are going on at any given time, but most recently, within the past year or two, one of the best decks for people watching, Kashtira. Kashtira was a archetype that a majority of its main deck monsters were level 7, and so it was very easy for it to access rank 7s, and Big Eye is one of those cards. Even historically speaking, there were a couple level 7 focused decks that Big Eye was played in just because it is a way to steal your opponent's stuff for free. And typically, you're never really going to get the second steal, I want to say. For the most part, when you're committing to a Big Eye, you're going to steal their thing, and if Big Eye sticks around, that's amazing. But typically, it's not going to stick around, because that card has a giant target on its face, because you don't want them stealing something a second time, because Big Eye's an incredibly good card. I thought you were going to get it when you said that, oh, stealing stuff's really good, and you have to jump through some hoops to steal stuff with this card. But stealing stuff's still pretty good, especially when you don't have to give it back to your opponent. So Big Eye, very, very good card. Very solid card. Not banned, though. So you got that part right.
I'd imagine it's very good. It's just, does this happen early enough that you feel like, I gotta remember, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! You can do so fucking much in your first turn. It's crazy. In Magic or Hearthstone, I feel like I would look at this effect and be like, is it really worth spending that much mana on a card like this? But I gotta remember in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sure. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, like it's very common that in Yu-Gi-Oh, let's say your opponent goes first, does their thing, puts up a board, whatever. On your first turn, you could very easily summon a Big Eye and start taking your opponent's stuff, right? Or threatening to take their stuff to force a response out of them. That's you know, Yu-Gi-Oh, you can do all that stuff on turn 1. So, but yeah, like you said, though, it is reactionary. Like, your opponent has to have something that's worth taking, but still a very strong card nonetheless. Okay, let's just think about this card.
Okay, number 16, Shockmaster. This is 4. You need 3. Okay, once per turn, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card to declare 1 card type, monster, spell, or trap. The type of card. If spell or trap can't be activated, or if monster cannot activate its effects until the end of your opponent's next turn. Holy shit. Can't activate its effects. So they can still, like, play them. They just can't use them. Well, I guess you can't set down a spell.
In the instance of monsters... Yeah, in the instance of monsters, you could hypothetically still play them, but you just can't use their effects. But the spells and traps, you really can't do anything with them. You could set them face down, I guess. That's about it.
This one looks way better than the other two.
But it does require 3 monsters.
Then we go on to the next question of this mechanic. How much more difficult is it to get 3? instead of 2?
I don't know. You've played Yu-Gi-Oh! How hard is it to get 3 monsters on the
bro.
field?
Well, during Sword Soul, I mean, it's possible for sure, I guess. Yeah. So I guess it's not that bad. This is, I mean, this is really interesting. Generally speaking, this is a good enough effect that you would play it as a card. Like, I feel like that's really, really strong. You are denying your opponent, like, maybe the most important mechanic of the game, which is activating their cards. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Feels like, especially at some point, like your cards need to do a lot in order for you to play them. There's been very few cards that you've shown me that don't have like a really good effect. This card is just like shutting off your opponent's deck, and you can do this once per turn. So that means when it comes back to your side, you could just do it again. If you go first, like you will absolutely ruin someone's day here. And that, I think that's good enough to see play. I'm going to imagine that 3 monsters is not as like, it's probably more difficult than 2, but it's probably not like, oh my God, like this is impossible to do. So I think this is very good. Actually, this is the first one that I might see banned just because of the play pattern of it. Like you shut down your opponent's like turn if you go first. And I feel like that's very unfun to have in your game. So I banned and also very good.
You are correct. Shockmaster is an incredibly egregious card. We call it the Shock Lock, where turn 1, your opponent gets 3 level 4s on the field. They just slap them all over to make Shockmaster. They're most likely going to call monster effects. Sometimes they can call spell effects, depending on the other cards they have in their hand. Because remember, it's not like Shockmaster is the only thing they're going to have to worry about. They're probably going to have other cards that you have to play through as well. And yeah, depending on what format you saw this card in, if you are sitting across the table from a turn 1 Shockmaster, you are probably going to want to just go home for the day because you just can't play the game. And who wants to play card games, right? Who wants to play card games?
Yeah, dude. Especially Yu-Gi-Oh! Am I right? Sorry.
I know, right? Especially when they see cards like this. Yeah, this card was giga banned. This card is still banned to this day because it's absolutely just gross. It would be even easier to summon this card today than compared to
so what I just learned from this card is summoning 3 monsters isn't that as difficult as I think it is.
Like I said, you should know that. That's not difficult.
Easy-ish. Yeah, but dude, I don't remember like anything. I couldn't even do the Sword Soul combo, even if I think you gave me it right now. Like if you told me to do it, I couldn't remember. Mogi into I can't remember. It's actually been so long. I need to.
I like how you write these little notes for yourself and then never read them again. By the way,
wait, I have. I don't fucking say that. It's been one card.
Well, let's see. You're 3 for 3. You're 3 for 3. Let's see if the streak can continue here.
Oh my God, what is it? Daigusto Emeral?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job. Your reading's on point today.
Thank you. I actually did a lot of studying since our last video. Reading comprehension has gone infinitely up.
Excellent.
I'm so back. All right. 2 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach one of these cards and activate one of these effects. Target 3 monsters or graveyard, shuffle all 3 into your deck, and draw 1 card. Target 1 non-effect monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. Non-effect monster is like when it says non-effect on it.
Yeah, anything that doesn't have an effect. Sword Soul actually has some non-effect monsters, funny enough.
Okay, I couldn't see it. This is the thing. I couldn't even name one, so that's where I'm at.
Do you remember the monk of the Tenyi? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
He's a non-effect monster. Yep.
Okay. Once per turn, you can detach one of these to do 3 monsters in your graveyard. 3 monsters, then shuffle them into your deck to draw 1 card. How do I feel about that? In Hearthstone, let's say that's possible. Like 3 monsters shuffle in my deck, then draw 1. That is not good enough. I don't think I would play that. Target 1 non-effect monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. So that's interesting, because does that counts as a special summon, so it doesn't take up your normal summon, and then again, that's more fodder for something else. So this is like it's like a stepping stone into something else. This isn't just outright like broken or like outright deny. This is like you're using this card for your game plan to progress further and I guess faster and more consistently.
Okay.
Why would you want to shuffle 3 monsters into your graveyard or from your graveyard into your deck? I feel like that's not great. That's like, because if any of these videos are showing me like putting cards in your graveyard is what you want to do, why would I want to back my deck? I guess you draw 1 card, and drawing cards in Yu-Gi-Oh is very good. Like, wouldn't I rather just like not put these cards in my deck and then draw a card? So there has to be something with like specifically putting monsters from the graveyard into your deck.
So you don't, do you think this card's good?
I mean, I'm trying to work my way up to think it is. Currently, no.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, so like in my mind, it's if your whole point is to consistently get to something, which I'm imagining what this card is used for, because it doesn't, again, like if Shockmaster immediately said to me like you're denying your opponent. This card is like progression to something more consistent in your game plan. The other logic would be like, why am I running this card when I can just get a card that does the same thing, but I don't have to go through all these hoops? There's the thought process of mine of like, what is targeting 3 monsters in your graveyard and shuffling them in your deck do? Like that has to do something very powerful. There has to be something I'm not aware of. But the second one's just good enough, I guess, right? You play this, you can do it twice, and that's a special summon that you don't have to worry about in your hand. So you get extra resources, and you also get to summon something back from your graveyard, which might trigger an additional effect. So maybe that's good enough. This is also 1800 attack. I don't know, actually. This one's weird. In Hearthstone, I'm not really vibing with this. I don't know what we would really call like a non-effect monster in Hearthstone, to be fair. I guess like just vanilla stats or something. So I wouldn't play that. It'd have to do something more. But obviously we don't sacrifice stuff in Hearthstone, so like that effect is not nearly as good. I think this one, oh my god, this one's my first glance is to say this card's not great, and I don't understand the combo. Like I think I'm missing a piece of the puzzle for like why I would want to target 3 monsters in my graveyard. But I'm waiting for you to tell me this card's insane. So I think it's bad. I think it's not great. Not bad is probably the wrong language there. It's not great. I feel like you could do something better than this, and I don't think it's bad.
Final answer?
Final answer.
This card's fucking insane.
Is it actually?
Fucking insane. Yeah. So let's walk you through Emeral. So there's a couple applications with Emeral. It's really funny you honed in on the second effect, because the second effect for the most part is like irrelevant. It's very rare that second effect actually matters. It's really all about the first effect. So targeting 3 in your grave, shuffle into the deck, draw a card. Basically, you have to remember this is Yu-Gi-Oh, not Hearthstone. Drawing an extra card in Yu-Gi-Oh at any point is fucking nuts. Just because basically, like, if you draw your card for the turn, right? If you're able to get into an Emeral, who cares if you're shuffling 3 back into the deck? You get to draw an extra card. Like, that's all that matters here. So there's several instances where this matters. There are times where shuffling the monsters back into your deck is good, because maybe you want to have just some of your highest power level monsters that are in your deck back into your deck so you can redraw them and redeploy them at some point. That's not, because Yu-Gi-Oh has so much tutorability, right? So it's not hard to get access to those cards again if they're back into your deck. But for the most part, even in like simplified game states, if you're both on low resources, if you can stick an Emeral, not only are you going to get to draw an extra card, and it's one extra card your opponent has to deal with and play through, if he sticks around a turn, you get to do it again and basically just get to draw 2 on your next turn, right? So then the game is just basically over, because you're just winning the resource game, and Yu-Gi-Oh is so resource intense in that way. Emeral, at multiple copies, can shuffle itself back into the extra deck. So it theoretically can create infinite loops where it's always shuffling itself and 2 other monsters back into the deck at some point, which actually enables a lot of degenerate bullshit combos, which, if you can believe it, this card has been banned before for a short period of time. Daigusto Emeral was banned because it was just way too good in the game. I believe it's at 1 right now, but just an incredibly, incredibly powerful card.
You're welcome for the thumbnail first and foremost, but
thank you.
You're saying this card's playable because drawing 1 card, even if you're shuffling 3 in your deck, is that good?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you might draw, like, you're playing all these cards in your deck already anyway because you want to draw them, right? And again, card draw is so scarce in Yu-Gi-Oh that getting an extra card is so individually powerful, because that 1 card could possibly lead into several other cards depending on what that card is. It could be a trap card to slow your opponent down or to like lock up the game. It could be one of your powerful spell cards to do any matter of nonsense, right? Just getting extra cards is really, really good. There were old combos with this card where you were like on the very first turn of the game, just before your opponent even takes a turn, you were several cards up on your opponent because you were using multiple Daigusto Emeral to shuffle cards back and just draw yourself extra cards. It doesn't matter that you're giving yourself back the cards in your deck. You just want to see more cards.
That's fair. So my logic was like, this card counts as a card, and then you also have to play 2 additional resources for this card. So like you're technically down 3 cards still after you draw 1. I guess my logic is not right because it works differently in Yu-Gi-Oh than it does in Hearthstone. Like, I'd rather just run the card I'm looking for rather than this card.
But you have to remember, you can access Emerald at any point out of the extra deck, right? It's a free card in that sense. So it's like, if you see the situation arise where you want to take 2 of your level 4s and overlay them for this guy, then if it's advantageous for you to do so, you can. You don't have to do that, right? It's not like you have to have this guy in your hand. He's always available to you as a toolbox.
Yeah, I think it's also just like, I actually didn't realize like it shuffles into the extra deck if you pick this card as well. So like it doesn't actually ruin the consistency of your main deck if that's what you're looking for. So like that's actually like kind of pretty good. I'm surprised it's that good though. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so you could shuffle back even all stuff for like a lot of the times in extra decks, you're only going to play 1 of an extra deck card, maybe 2, depending on if it's something that's part of your main engine. So maybe giving yourself back those cards, you could do like maybe your best combo again is another just like valuable asset that this card offers. Just an incredibly good card though. Very good card. You're learning. That was your first miss though. You're pretty solid so far. Let's see if you can pick it back up.
It just, I don't know. It's just so interesting because like You've showed me Max C. Like I know what Max C is. So it's like, why the fuck is this card playable? Like I don't understand. Like maybe
think about it. You could draw into Max C with your extra draw of Emerald.
I see. So any way to draw towards Max C, big brain.
Yeah, exactly. All roads lead to Max C. Now you're learning. Now you're learning.
What the fuck is this? Lavalval Chain. That makes sense. Lavalval Chain. What the fuck is a Lavalval? Is that a dragon? A sea serpent? All right,
it's
regardless.
a sea serpent, actually.
2 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach this from one of these effects. Okay, so send one card from your deck to your graveyard. Okay, choose one monster from your deck and place it on top of your deck. Okay, I mean, all right. Like, see, this one's so much better in my opinion. Like, I think this is infinitely better than the last one. I think sending a card directly to my graveyard is the same thing as drawing into my like extra deck, whatever you call it. And then also knowing what the next card of my deck is insane. I'm a big fan of this one way more than the other one. And I guess that also makes your Emerald more consistent if you really needed it. I like this card. This card's very good. That's my logic.
Okay.
Consistency is good.
You think it was banned?
I can see it being banned, but like you've told me before, there's a lot of tutorability for your deck. So like, I don't think this needs to be banned because I'm sure there's other cards that do this just as well. I guess maybe having the versatility here is great. But like now that I'm really considering the extra deck, this card actually seems very good. I don't think it's bad. No, I don't think it's bad. I think it's just very good.
Final answer?
Final answer.
All right, this card sucks. I don't know why you thought it was so good.
I'm
just joking. This card's nuts.
Okay. I was like, what is this logic in Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, what are you guys talking about over there? Okay, good.
Got to keep you on your toes. Got to keep you on your toes.
Good. What the fuck? Okay.
Yeah, Lavalval Chain is fucking crazy. This card has to be banned for like probably 40 different decks, to be honest. So you have to think about this. Decks that want to get stuff in the graveyard are probably going to play plenty of enablers in the main deck already to get those cards to the graveyard. But you still have to draw those cards, right? Lavalval Chain gave you the outlet that's available to you at any moment, as long as you can just get 2 level 4s on the field to overlay to make this, to now immediately send that card to the graveyard at any moment, which drastically boosted the consistency of any deck that is trying to do this. So Lavalval Chain is the starting point of many degenerate bullshit combo decks. For people who are watching, you already know it's like Infernity and plenty of other nonsense. Just an incredibly strong card. The second effect is also not terrible. I will say you're primarily using this card for the first effect, but it wasn't uncommon that sometimes, depending on the situation, you would stack a card on the top of your deck because you want to either draw it after, you stack it and you have another card to draw so you can get that card to your hand, or on the follow-up turn, you put the best card on the top of your deck that you know is going to win you the game. Also, Lavalval Chain, similar to Daigusto Emeral, is not once per turn per copy. So if you have multiple Lavalval Chain, you can just start doing even more degenerate bullshit as long as you have the fodder and resources to keep summoning multiple copies of it. You can recycle them with Daigusto Emeral. That was something that I was alluding to earlier. This card is not okay. This card is not okay in the slightest and has been banned for a very long time.
Oh, it's been banned. Okay, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So you're back on the board. You're back on the board.
Okay. Now, you see my visceral reaction to this card compared to the last one? Like, I noticed this one's immediately noticeable how good this card is. The last one, I still like, I'd have to see it being played to truly understand how good it is.
It's funny though, because like as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, just anytime you see the ability to draw a card, our eyes light up, right? Because that's just something we don't get to do very often. So it's like that would be the visceral reaction of a Yu-Gi-Oh player. But because in Hearthstone, you guys get to draw 7 every turn, like it doesn't really matter to you. All right, let's show you a bigger guy again.
Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand. This is 2 level 8 monsters once per turn. During either player's turn, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card and target 1 face-up monster on the field this turn. Its effects are negated, but is unaffected by other card effects. So you're using this specifically if the effect of a monster is just very, very good. This is very specific. Hold on, let me scroll back up real fast. Hold on. So Shockmaster was better than this card. I'd rather have Shockmaster than this. So that makes me immediately think this isn't nearly as good. Because like, yeah, you could do this on your opponent's turn, but like, why not just call it earlier and then stop them from doing literally anything? And this affects everything of the same field. Like if this only hits 1 monster, I'd rather just stop every monster from doing anything. So I think this card is not as good as that one. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with that, I'm hoping. So the question is this card good enough to see play? Once per turn.
You have to think though, it also depends on the type of deck that you're playing, because maybe if you're playing a deck that plays level 4s, you can't play level 8s very well, or vice versa. So
I was thinking more like in a vacuum, right? Like I think for me, as we continue doing this, I literally can't actually think about like the level and how likely it is to get them. Like I just have to think, is the card playable? Because like you showed, or you told me with what card was it? The Big Eye. Like you said, it was consistent enough and it had archetypes across like the board or like across Yu-Gi-Oh's history. So like that means if the card is playable at some point, it will see play because it's worth playing, right? So I think that just looking at it in a vacuum is probably just the better way of doing it. Which makes me think that like in a vacuum, I'd rather have Shockmaster than like the Felgrand. If the case is like you can't put them in both and this is the one you want to play because you're playing some level 8 monster deck, is this good? You can detach one of the materials from this card and then target a face-up monster in the field. So if there's no other way of doing that, this card will probably see play. Okay. It's a big enough monster where you're like, okay, like this is gonna do something on the board with its attack power, and it might save you from losing the game for detaching material. So like that's probably fine. If I'm ignoring the fact that it has to have a deck to support it, this card's probably playable. I don't think it's banned.
Okay. Final answer?
I think like looking at like, does this have an archetype to see play? Like, I think that's impossible for me to understand without seeing like the whole cards, right? So yeah, I think like in a vacuum, this card's fine. And
you're correct. Felgrand's a perfectly fine card. It's a perfectly fine card. It's really good in the decks that can support the level 8s, but for the most part, that's basically what it's relegated to. It can be used both offensively and defensively. If you want to negate something your opponent has, you can. If you want to just protect Felgrand, you can use the effect on itself. It negates its own effect, which is kind of funny, but then it's immune to everything for the rest of the turn, so it's probably not going to die, and you just have this big guy that your opponent has to deal with. So very strong card, very, very annoying card, but for the most part, I wouldn't say it's like broken or anything crazy. Like it's just a solid card. I think this is like a very balanced card for what it's worth.
Yeah,
it's totally
that's
fine.
the way of putting it. Yeah, balance is the way I put it.
Only a few left. You're learning. You're actually doing quite well. You've only actually, I think, missed one in this video. Let's see what you think about this guy.
I'm evolving. What the fuck is this? What's the artwork here? This is a villain from Power Rangers. Evilswarm.
Honestly, it kind of looks like that.
What is this word? Exciton?
Yeah.
Knight. Okay. 2 level 4 monsters, once per chain during your main phase or on your opponent's battle phase. If your opponent has more total cards in their hand in their side of the field than you do, so that is a culmination between the two. That is not individual.
Correct.
Total cards in their, okay, and their side of the board. Okay, you detach one XYZ material from this card, destroy all other cards in the field. Also, your opponent takes no further damage this turn. Okay, hold on. Wait, doesn't this guy just cook? Like, what? Isn't this nuts?
Are you cooking?
So, once per chain means once a card is activated, I can use this card. Or like once a card is like doing something, like what? Just so I know mechanically like what that actually means.
Yeah. So once per chain, you can either declare this effect as an ignition effect if you'd like, or you can use it into response to your opponent doing something. They're basically just saying you can't use the effect multiple times within the same chain. Because let's say hypothetically, you activate Exciton. Let's say they chain a card in response. I don't know what. You can't activate Exciton again because it doesn't say you can only do this once per turn, right? So that's instead of once per turn, it's once per chain. That's the trade-off.
I feel like you only play this in response, though. No, like why would you ever want to just start the chain with this? Because I've learned like from Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like you want this to be the last thing, right? Rather than the first thing. I'm assuming for most of the time, like. You'd have to, after you explain how good this card is, you may have to explain why you would want to do it at the start. So like, in my opinion, like you wouldn't never want to do this on your main phase. I don't know why you'd want to do this on your main phase. Like it almost feels like it's infinitely better during your opponent's battle phase. I guess maybe like if it's your only opportunity to clear the board, you would do this, but you would always want your opponent to kind of lean into it more, right? I guess it could be destroyed is the only thing that matters here. But even if they're trying to destroy it, you just detach material at the last step of the chain and then you destroy everything. And then your opponent has to have a response to that. So it's like a game of cat and mouse. I mean, bro, isn't this card like nuts? Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to play this. It fits in the level 4, so you fit into the what's the Shockmaster deck. So then they have 2, and you get it in your Armoral deck. No, it's nuts. It's nuts. He's the GOAT. He's my.
Was he banned?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like you're so excited until I asked you that.
Banning of a card. Okay, is this an egregious enough effect that I would want this banned? It's so annoying. This is such a frustrating card because your opponent has to like always save something for this if it's going to be the last thing in the chain. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just good. It's good removal. Yeah, I don't think it's banned. Fuck. No, it's not banned. No, not banned.
Sticking with your guns.
Good card, not banned.
Well, you shouldn't have stuck with your guns because you are incorrect. Exciton, as you said, is cracked and was banned for quite some time, as a matter of fact. You were basically right on it with everything. Okay. This card is just an incredible way to sort of equalize going second, especially. If your opponent goes first, does some stuff, most of the time they might have more cards than you do. And so as the result of that, if you're able to you're actually already losing a card by taking 2 level 4s and putting them into Exciton anyway, right? You're already down a card by doing that. So even at like equilibrium, if you're going like, let's say your opponent draws their first card, they have 6, and then you draw your card, you have 6 as well. Taking 2 4s to make Exciton, you're already down 1 card to them, which means that Exciton is live. And you could also do things to, manipulate how many cards you have versus them. But when this card was printed, everyone had to worry about getting Exciton knighted or had a way to respond to Exciton so that they could actually deal with it. Because if this card went off, and especially if it's like a deck that plays like a lot of trap cards or just has a lot committed to the board, if Exciton resolves, that might just be the end of the game. This card was like a $100 card. That's how good it was. Because it's a board wipe you have access to at any moment as long as you're playing a level 4 deck, right? I mean, you don't have to draw the board wipe. It's available to you. The fact that it was a quick effect was insane because if your opponent tried to interact with it, like you said, once per chain, you just detach and just threaten to nuke the board anyway. It was actually not uncommon to just, if you see the opening for Exciton, to just make your Exciton and be the one to start by activating the effect first. Because if they don't have a way to interact with it, they have to start activating stuff because they're just going to lose all of it anyway. It was totally fine using it just as an ignition effect and not having to use it as a quick effect. But the fact it was a quick effect made it even more broken because if your opponent tried to do anything to interact with it, they just chained Exciton and everything gets blown up anyway.
Oh, okay. So you say you would start the chain because then you force your opponent to use the stuff on their board, which
precisely
means they don't have it for like other stuff you were gonna play.
Precisely, yeah. Okay. Like, typically, you would try to use other stuff to maybe bait some of those cards out first because you want the Exciton to resolve most of the time. But depending on, like, the situation, if you're the one initiating it, you're forcing their hand. Like, they have to do something. Otherwise, they're losing their whole board, right? Because you're most of the time just not going to commit anything else to the board. You keep everything else in hand. You blow everything up, and then you do everything on your turn. You don't care about that they take no damage because you just nuke their board. You probably won anyway because of that. That alone is probably good enough. So, incredibly good card. Was banned for quite some time. It's legal now. It can see play. Like, it's not, it's a board wipe, so it's not like out of the realm of possibility, but it's kind of past its prime.
So now there's just better effects on this. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, or it's just, the game's just kind of power crept where it's like this card's just like not what it's no longer as good as it used to be. Oh boy, we're getting to some good ones now. I can't wait to see your thoughts on this one.
All right, this guy's got infinite text for the last ones. Hold on. Okay. Oh god, what is that last word? Oh Jesus.
Yeah, give that a read. Give that a read.
Okay, number 86, heroic champion. All right, hold on. Let me try this.
You can do it.
Rhongomyniad, something along those lines.
Put it all together.
Rhongomyniad.
Pretty close. Rhongomyniad.
Fuck. Oh, I forgot the I. Okay. This is 2 or more max 5. What the fuck? 2 or more max 5 level 4 warrior type monsters.
So this one's more specific. I've been showing you a lot of generic ones, but this one does require specifically warrior monsters.
What does it mean by 2 or more?
You will find out as you read the card.
Oh, so you could add more resources to this. Oh, wait, hold on. Based on the number of, okay. During each of your opponent's end phases, you attach 1 material from this card. This card gains effects based on the number of XYZ materials attached to it.
Now, before you read, I do want to let you know, you have to pick how many you're stacking on. You don't get to add them later. Yeah, well, there are cards that let you add them later, but for the most part, when you're Xyz summoning this card, you would say, I'm going to take 3 of these guys to make this. I'm going to take 2 to make this. I'm going to take 5 to make it. You don't get to like add them later unless there's a card that lets you. So just to clarify that before you read the rest of this.
You have to, okay, I get what you mean. Okay, 1 or more cannot be destroyed by battle. Okay, 2 or more against 1500 attack and defense. Okay, 3 or more unaffected by other cards' effects. 4 or more, your opponent cannot normal or special summon monsters. 5 or more, once per turn, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Holy shit. Okay. So you got to take this step by step. 1 cannot be destroyed by battle. That is a really good effect if your opponent runs no removal. But most of the time your opponent is going to have a way to answer that. So that's not that insane. I guess at this point in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not that insane. 2 or more gains 1500 attack and defense. If that's the case, this guy's a very annoying threat that must be answered, but they're probably going to answer this regardless at this point. 3 or more unaffected by other cards' effect. Okay, so that means it cannot die to literally anything.
Yep.
So is there any way to answer it, or is it's just going to be on board for the rest of the time?
Yeah, the first line of text.
What do you mean the first line of text? What am I reading here?
The first line of text on the card.
What do you mean, like removing materials? What am I missing here?
Yeah.
So
during each of your opponent's end phases, detach 1 Xyz material from this
I'm
card.
sorry. I thought it was an optional step. This is like...
Oh, that's mandatory.
Yeah, this is mandatory. I'm sorry. That's where I was misinterpreting what you were saying. Sorry, that was my bad. 4 or more, your opponent cannot normal or special summon monsters. 5, so once per turn you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. If you play this for 5, you probably win the game, unless your opponent like answers it before it comes on the board, which I imagine is very good. Winning the game is pretty great.
I hear that's the case.
That's pretty sick, because you just kind of, you play this, your opponent does their turn, and then you just wipe everything they control. That seems pretty good. And it can't be affected by anything else if it has 5. So it's like, that is, you probably just win the game on the spot. 4 or more, your opponent cannot normal or special summon monsters. So even at 4, you're probably winning the game. Like you're in a sense skipping your opponent's turn. I mean, I guess they could play spells, but that seems very good. 3 is very strong. 3 is not nearly as good because you have to deattach material. Interesting. This is a very unique card.
Yeah, that's a word for it.
Okay, 1 or 2 I don't think is good enough. You have to go at least 3, and at least I think 3 is maybe not even that good. You get a 3,000 that can attack immediately. Okay, you know what? That's not bad. That could just win the game on the spot, and your opponent can't do anything to stop it. But I don't know if you just want like a big meatball like this, because it's not nearly as good the following turn. So 4 or more is really interesting, because then you stop your opponent from doing like progressing on the board other than spells. I mean, 5 is insane. So if you're going for 5, you probably win, but 4 is probably good enough. If you go first and you are able to hit 5, you win the game on the spot.
Okay.
There's nothing your opponent can do, because they can't do anything on their turn. They can't protect themselves from this. So you probably just win the game. If you go second and your opponent, you get to play this, you also get to do the exact same thing, but in reverse. This card seems very good. Like if you're able to hit 5, like you win the game. Like this is like, I feel like that's very strong. And I have no, like, if we can get 3, how much more difficult is 5 is the question. That is the only piece of this puzzle I don't understand. If it is easy to get 5, this card is insane. It's probably banned. If it's not, I think at 3, you're probably not the biggest fan of this card.
So what do you think?
So I'm going to go with it's easy enough to get 5, and it's very good. And I guess banned if it's playable to get 5. But
final answer?
Yeah, that is my final answer. I think I can't wait to see how likely it is to get to 5. Go for what is it?
All right, let's talk about Rhongomyniad. So
Hey,
Rhongomyniad on release, God, people really wanted to make Rongo work. The amount of time and effort people took to brew to try to find ways to get the max 5 effect is incredible, because you have to think of it this way. If you go turn 1, you stack it with 5 materials. On the opponent's end phase, it's going to lose 1. So during the entire next turn, if your opponent cannot normal or special summon, and this thing is unaffected by other card effects, what exactly are you doing? Like, this is Yu-Gi-Oh, right? This is the game where you're special summoning like crazy. But if they can't do that, and the thing that's preventing them from doing that is basically unkillable, then what the fuck are they supposed to do, right? So people, all the combo brewers, their eyes just lit up like Christmas with this card, because they wanted to make it work, and people found the decks that it really could work in, but they were just so clunky and so janky that it just didn't end up coming to fruition.
Is it bad?
Until enough time passed after Rongo was released that enough support came into the game that there was a deck that was able to make Rongo consistently turn 1, like 90% of the time. That this was basically the best thing you could be doing, and people were so fucking sick of it, and so it got banned, because it's just like, you can't interact with it. It's so unfun to play against. This was like one of the worst, most egregious cards ever designed, and when they designed it, they probably didn't think it was going to get to the point that, you know, it was going to be this powerful and consistent. There were like a couple of decks that could play this, like, you know, plan C of their deck, that it's like, okay, if we get to this point, we can make Rhongomyniad and like, we're going to win the game from here. But it wasn't like auto make this turn 1 as consistent as possible. Like, that was never like how this card initially worked out. But then once enough of the pieces of the puzzle came together, this card was just fucking unbelievable. And it got banned. Once people put that together, it got banned very quickly, because it was a very unfun card to play against.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yep.
I mean, you talked about it before, like with Shockmaster. Like, if you can't play the game, what's the point of playing the game?
Exactly. But there's a lot more hoops to jump through with this compared to Shockmaster for a while. Shockmaster is a lot more generic comparatively. And this card came out a lot later too. So, and Shockmaster was already banned by this point as well, for what it's worth. Couple left. I'm excited to see what you think about these last ones.
2 level 4 monsters. Once per turn during the standby phase, you can attach the top card of your opponent's deck to this card as a material. Quick effect, you can detach up to 3 different types of materials from this card, then apply the following effects depending on what was detached. If it was a monster, banish this card until the end phase. Spell, draw a card. Trap, place 1 face-up card on your opponent. Place 1 face-up card your opponent controls on the top of the deck. You can only use this effect once per turn. Place 1 face-up card on your opponent controls on the top of the deck. On their deck.
Well, if it's a card you own, technically it would go to the top of your deck, but for the most part, you're putting stuff on the top of their deck.
Sure. Okay, so
yeah. Wow,
this is interesting. So you don't have
cool card, huh?
Yeah, you don't have to detach the. This is like a Hearthstone card almost, man. Like you're just playing with your opponent's deck. That's kind of cool. And I'm assuming you always do this. Your standby phase is before your draw phase, right?
After, but it all happens before you take your main actions. Yeah, and also it's both players' standby phases, not just yours.
Oh, my bad. Okay, during the standby phase. So you play this. You do 2 materials. You go to standby phase. Your opponent draws. You do something with this. And this is a quick effect, so you could do this on their turn. And you know what at least 2 of the materials are because you did it. And I guess you know.
Well, presumably they'd be both monsters, presumably. But I will say there are trap monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! So like there is a world where you could put a trap underneath this as one of your first materials as well.
Wait, so when you say banish this card until the end phase, that means your opponent just doesn't interact with this. And it comes back at the start of like your next turn.
Correct. But in the instance that you do that, it loses all of its materials. So
okay, that is a very important thing to know.
That is very important. But he's able to get back more materials, which is a cool part of his effect.
Okay, so you said to me if a card draws a card, you're like pretty happy. And your opponent loses a card, which is okay. So your opponent draws, but they don't actually draw the card. They just lose the card.
Well, they'll draw their card for turn, and then the next card on top of their deck will be attached to the doer.
But like that card is it's really interesting because like not only do you know what that card is,
it's milling with extra steps. Yeah.
And then you also get the draw card.
Well, if it's a spell.
Sure. If it's a spell, if it's a spell, sorry. Place 1 card up. I mean, that's also just really good. Like this card has a lot of upside to it. So the question is like, if you banish this card the very first, so you get to draw a card and then you can detach if you want to. Do you get to pick the ordering of this as well? So like I could go like draw a spell first, or sorry, draw a card if I have a spell. Then I can say like, I'm going to banish this card after.
So how it would work is you would pick which materials you're detaching all at once. So in your example, you would pick, I'm going to detach this spell card, this monster card. And then you would just resolve both effects. So he gets banished and you draw a card.
Okay. So they happen like simultaneously. Okay.
Everything's like essentially it's simultaneous, but yeah.
I mean, this card looks really good. I mean, it's not, we've already established that level 4 monsters are pretty good. It fits into a variety of different decks and you get to draw cards potentially. You also get to protect this card theoretically for the rest of its lifespan, as long as you have a monster. And you are at least guaranteed to do something the very first time you go over to your opponent's turn. Feels really strong. It's not consistent, I guess, after you lose both the monsters that you played, if that's what you're going for. But on average, like if you do draw a spell and a trap card, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least half the deck would be spells and trap cards. Even if it's just monsters, like you're just taking the monster away from them, and then like if they target this, you just banish it and you do it again. Like you're pretty happy overall with this card. This card just seems good. Like I don't even know if it's broken, but like it just seems good. There's no downsides to this. It's just fine. I guess like the downside is you could be playing other cards, but for the most part, like having a reoccurring effect like this, also getting information, also having the ability to like potentially draw or like put cards back on the top of your deck or your opponent's deck is really good. And if you put the card on top of your opponent's deck, you know what they're drawing. This card's insane. Like this just seems very, very, very good. Like very good.
Was it banned?
That's a great question. It's not outright denying, but it is. Oh my god, returning a card is pretty good. Drawing I think it's banned. If you told me that drawing a card is very, very good, then I'm gonna go with it's banned. This card just seems like so annoying to deal with. It's like
final answer.
Final answer.
He is really annoying to deal with, but he's not banned.
Oh, okay.
He's not banned.
That's good. It's good.
I think people love this card. I think there's just it's funny because it's like it's one of those instances where it's like people love it, but if they're playing against it, they really hate it because this card is so annoying to play against. First of all, you just have the upkeep of every single standby phase. It's taking stuff off the top of your deck to give to your opponent's redoer or vice versa. So you're always having to do that song and dance. And anytime your opponent's taking your stuff, no one really likes that. Even though they don't technically really get to use the stuff, compared to like Big Eye, right? But they still get to do like something with it. And especially if it's like a really good card out of your deck. Like if they Pot of Greed's obviously banned at this point, but hypothetically, if they took Pot of Greed off the top of your deck, you're not exactly going to be happy that they just did that, right? Because not only are they going to get to draw a card because of the effect, but you just lost your Pot of Greed in that instance. Again, Pot of Greed has been banned forever, but just for simplicity's sake, just like losing some of your best cards is not good. Although depending on the type of deck, maybe you don't mind stuff being in the graveyard, which could be a potential downside of Redoer. But for the most part, this card is just phenomenal. Just very annoying to deal with because he is sticky, because he can always tag himself out. And even if he loses materials, he can just get them back just as quickly as he lost them, so it doesn't really matter. And then if you get a trap card underneath Redoer, he gets even better because then he's like actually a way to interact with your opponent. And funny enough, putting a card on the top of your opponent's deck is even funnier because then you get to attach it to Redoer on the next standby phase. Again, just like sort of like this really unique form of removal potentially. Very, very cool card. People love this card just because it's like a really, it's good. I wouldn't say it's like, you know, I wouldn't say it's like giga pushed or anything like that. It's just a really well-designed card. I think a lot of people would agree with, and has a lot of other just really good upside without getting like too into the weeds of it. But yeah, just a solid card. A lot of people like it in the decks that can play it. It's actually seen play within the past couple of years. But yeah, just good card, but never banned. It's totally fine.
All right, and I imagine it's not banned because it's just not consistent enough.
It's not that. It's just like, it's not really doing anything egregious. Like, the most annoying part about it is that it can just keep tagging itself out, right? And it's just like taking your opponent's stuff off the top of the deck. But it's kind of just fine. It's just like a fair card for what it's worth. It's like, okay, there's way worse. Like, you've seen Rhongomyniad, like you've seen Shockmaster. Like, it's not nearly in the league of those cards. For your last card. Oh, goody, goody, goody. I'm excited for this one. Let's see what you think about this one.
Okay, what the fuck is this card? No, you're good. Define Arsenal AA-ZEUS, or is it Zeus?
It's Zeus.
Zeus. Sky Thunder. Sorry, I say that because there's a pro League of Legends player that's spelled the exact same way, and he says,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so that's why I just have to like ask that question. 2 level 12 monsters. Okay. Once per turn, if an XYZ monster battled this turn, you could also XYZ summon Divine Art. You can look at this card by using one XY monster you control as material. So you can get another one. Transfer its materials to this card. Quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card. Send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. Once per turn, if another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can attach 1 card from your hand, deck, or extra deck to this card as material. Oh, so this is the card that keeps on giving. I was going to say if the entire effect was hinged on the fact that it battled this turn, I'm not sure how good this card would have been. But obviously, as you read more, it's a little bit better than that. You detach 2 materials from this card, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard once per turn. So that's a quick, that's insane. Once per turn, if another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's effect. You can quick effect this as long as 1 other card is destroyed, you can add more materials to this. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. Now, have you showed me a level 12 monster before?
I don't know if I have, actually.
I mean, objectively speaking, this card is just good. Like, if you can play this card, you're probably playing this card. This one is probably in a vacuum, like, I think it's very easy to say, like, good card. Like, let's be honest here. But the question is, how likely are you to get 2 level 12 monsters? That seems like insane.
Well, you don't need 2 level 12 monsters.
Wait, what do you mean you don't? Wait, what am I missing here?
Read the first line.
Once per turn, if an XYZ monster battles, you can also summon. Wait, this card. Okay, sorry. Explain something about Yu-Gi-Oh for me. If this card is in your hand, it's not on the field. Like, the text isn't on the field. You could still do this?
Well, it would be in your extra deck, but yes.
Sorry, extra deck. Sorry. So, oh my fucking God. See, like, that's a mechanic thing. Like, in Hearthstone, right? Like, this would have to be on the board for that text to apply. So that's where my brain was.
So clarify. So now what do you think? Now that you understand that.
Okay, so this doesn't even have to go into a level 12 monster deck. You could just, as long as you have 1 XYZ monster, you're chilling. But you do need to battle this turn. Is that consistent enough? You've showed me cards that just like stop your opponent from playing the game. Why am I running this? I guess they get banned. So like at some point this will be playable. I mean, if you can play this card, it's insane. Like that's just what it comes down to. So battling doesn't seem that unlikely. I mean, current Yu-Gi-Oh was like, I feel like the game was over before I even got to hit an attack most of the time. Maybe I'm wrong though. I'm sure at some point this is playable. Like that doesn't seem like that's hard to do.
You don't seem convinced. I think this might be the toughest one. I think this might be the toughest one.
Like if we're saying that you don't need to play 2 level 12 monsters and you're just running this card into your deck, like the entire thing obviously hinges on the fact that you're doing battle with your opponent. Based on what it was when I played Yu-Gi-Oh, that wasn't happening that much. And if it does happen at that point, like you're probably already winning the game. I guess so you could be losing the game and this saves you. I'm going to imagine that it's going to happen. And just by like,
okay.
The worst case for this card is it sits in your extra deck. So that means the floor here is obviously very powerful because like at any point in time, any XYZ monster, because that's an opponent. That's your opponent too. If an XYZ monster battled this turn, no, this card. Okay, no, it has to be nuts. It has to be nuts. If there's any XYZ monsters playable, this is insane. Very good card. Probably banned. Final answer.
Final answer.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Zeus. Zeus is fucking cracked. Yeah,
okay.
You're right. It's crazy. So in a world when this card got released, people were just like losing their minds because there's some things you may not have picked up on here. So the quick effect that says detach 2 materials on this card, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. That effect is not once per turn, nor is it once per chain. So if you have 4 materials underneath your Zeus, you can detach 2 to threaten to nuke the board. Your opponent uses something to negate Zeus. Oh no, whatever will I do? I'm going to activate Zeus again, get rid of the other 2 materials, and wipe the board anyway, compared to something like Exciton, where it says once per chain. I was curious if you're going to pick up on that, but it's fine that you didn't. So even if Zeus gets threatened, you're still most of the time able to resolve the effect of Zeus. Also, Zeus specifically says that it sends all other cards on the field to the graveyard. It doesn't say destroy, and that's very relevant because there are some cards that say if this card is destroyed or if it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, they'll trigger some sort of effect. Sending to the graveyard is not the same as destroying, which means that it actually bypasses any of those effects. It bypasses any card that has protection from being destroyed, hypothetically, as well. So sending to the graveyard just bypasses a whole lot in Yu-Gi-Oh! So anytime you see that versus like destroy, that's like at a premium. So this card, if it resolves, it's going to wipe everything, like almost 100% of the time. And yeah, this card is just wild. At any point, if you feel like you're falling behind, you could just attack with any of your Xyz monsters, because most of the time, either an Xyz-focused deck is going to be playing this card, or there are a handful of cards that some decks can play that are an Xyz monster that isn't particularly good. It might be a card that all it says, it can attack your opponent directly, and it may have like 200 attack or something, right? But it means it can get an attack in, it won't be destroyed by battle, and that means that you're now able to lay Zeus on top to wipe your opponent's field. So a lot of the times with Zeus being in the game, you have to be mindful of the fact that at any point, if they connect with an Xyz monster in any way, whether it's a direct attack or just something, and that monster survives, they can even just attack one of your defense position monsters because your monster won't die. They can just slap Zeus down, and all of a sudden, they're going to be in control of the game. And if they have a Zeus with material after Zeus already wiped the field once, good luck recovering from that, because Zeus at any point, because it's a quick effect as well, it can just wipe the board in response. Incredibly busted card, but not banned. Zeus is really? Legal. It is legal. Yep, it's actually considered a very strong just going second card to help restabilize in case your opponent just goes too crazy on the very first turn. But very good card. Very insane card. People love Zeus. It's a lot of fun.
So that means XYZ monsters are still being played till this day, like you said. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Zeus is seen play just as recently as this year. I mean, it's just an incredible card for what it's worth, and probably will, just as long as Xyz monsters are relevant. Zeus will probably find a home in the extra deck just because it's a board wipe. I mean, I don't know what else you can really say. It's insane.
Yeah. I wonder if this card's playable if it didn't have the first line of touch, but probably too much, because I imagine.
Oh, if you needed level 12s, 100% not. No shot.
Okay.
No shot.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, you didn't show me any level 12s. That's why I was like thinking about more on it. But you're right. Like the first line of touch.
We're not here to play fair Yu-Gi-Oh, Rarin. We're Yu-Gi-Oh. We cheat everything.
Listen, I don't know how possible it is to cheat a level 12 monster. Like, I don't even know what the fuck they do. Apparently, they're not good enough for not showing them to me.
So what do you think about Xyz monsters?
I mean, they're my favorite because I think I did very good.
You did do very good. I think you've only missed a couple, to be honest, across the whole video. But yeah, for someone who only knows what synchro monsters are, I think you did actually pretty good. I think everyone will be impressed. Your reading comprehension definitely improved since last time.
Thank you. I just passed grade 8. Yeah, doing good. I'm doing good. Oh my god.
So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all of their continued support. So shoutouts to Shadow1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Madolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fade Leaf, Draconic, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Brian Dancer of Class 7, Flannel Daddy, Twinkle Muncher, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLapperty, Stolfin Amethyst, MBT Cancel Bio Community soon, Cancel Bio Committee soon, Cancel Bio Player soon, Wonder Waffle, Main Phase 2 Synchro on that thing, Daniel Howell, Life Keeps Using Solemn Judgment on My Hopes and Dreams, and Naveed Mandavi. Thank you so much again for watching, and we will see you next time.